Hello everybody, today I'm going to show you how to install Ubuntu version 22 or 23. It should work exactly the same for either one. So I'm going to show you how to get that file, where to download it, and how to install it in a VMware Fusion virtual machine. So stay tuned and I'm going to show you how to do all that. Okay, so the first thing you want to do in order to get your Ubuntu version 22 or 23 installed in a VMware Fusion virtual machine is on your computer, you want to go into your web browser. Now, I just happen to be using Firefox. So I'm going to go into Firefox, I'm going to launch it, and then I'm going to go over and I'm going to click on either Google or DuckDuckGo, whatever you want to use to search with. And I'm just going to go over there and I'm going to download Ubuntu version 22 or 23. So I'm just going to go ahead and do version 23. So we're going to just click on Get Ubuntu. And then right here, you can see there's a button that says download. So I'm going to click on that. And it takes you here to this page. And you can download either version 22 or you can download version 23. It doesn't matter which one. They'll work exactly the same. I'm just going to go ahead and do 23. And I'm going to click on download. And what it's going to do, it's going to give me the option to download the ISO. There you go. See, there's the ISO, and I'm just going to go ahead and tell it to save it. So when this finishes downloading, because it's going to take it a couple of minutes, not very long, but just a couple minutes. And as soon as it finishes downloading, we'll go ahead and get started on creating the virtual machine. While we're waiting for it to finish downloading, if you want, we can go ahead and create the virtual machine so we're not waiting as long. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and open VMware Fusion. Now, if you have an icon down there on the bottom on your dock, that's great. If you don't, that's okay. Just click on Finder, go to your applications, and then just scroll all the way to the bottom, and you're going to click on VMware Fusion. Once you open the VMware Fusion, it'll show you all the other virtual machines that you currently have. Well, obviously I don't have Ubuntu in this list, so I'm going to create a new one. So I'm going to click File, click on New. Then I'm just going to create it from scratch. So I'm going to create a custom virtual machine since we're still waiting for the ISO file to download. So create a custom virtual machine, click Continue, and then here you can choose your version of Linux that you like. So I'm going to click Linux. And if you scroll to the bottom, there you go. There's Ubuntu 64-bit. So we're going to click on that and click Continue. Here, you can choose a legacy BIOS or UEFI. I'm going to go ahead and leave it as legacy, and I'm going to click Continue. Here, you want to create a new virtual disk for it. We'll click Continue. Here you go. Now we can go in and we can customize those settings. So I'm going to click Customize. And this is where it asks you where you want to save it. So you can save it in the folder called Virtual Machines. You can save it on an external drive. You can save it on a flash drive, wherever you want to. So I'm going to put mine on an external drive. I just call it empty. And so I'm going to put it on empty and just call it Ubuntu. And I'm going to click Save. Now that I've got it created, I can go in there and change all the settings. So instead of one processor core, I'm going to give it 2. And instead of just 1 gig of RAM, I'm going to give it 4 gigs of RAM. So instead of 1024, I'm going to put 4096 because it does it by megabytes, not gigabytes. After I change that, I'm going to go back to Show All, and I'm going to change the hard disk size. So instead of 20 gigabytes, I want to let it have up to 100 gigabytes. And then I'm going to click Apply. Now, the last thing I want to do is I'm going to go back to Show All. Here, you can change the network adapter. So I'm going to change it, and instead of sharing it from my Mac to the virtual machine, I'm going to let the virtual machine connect directly to the network. So I'm going to do a bridge network, and I'm going to do auto detect. That will let it connect directly to the internet and not have to go through my Mac machine's internet and get configured that way. It'll just go directly to the router each time it wants to make any connections to a server, to a web address, anything of that nature. Okay, now I've made all the changes I need to, except the ISO. So we're going to go back to Show All, and then we're going to go down here to the CD DVD. I'm going to click on that. Obviously, I'm not using a super drive, so I'm going to choose a disk image. Here, I should be able to go to the downloads, and I'm going to sort it by the date modified. Okay, as you can see, it's still downloading, so we do have to wait for this to finish. So I'm going to go back over to Firefox and see we're only halfway finished. So when that does get finished, we'll pick right back up, and then we'll continue on with my instructions on how to get Ubuntu version 23 installed on your virtual machine. The Ubuntu 23.04 ISO file finally finished downloading. So what we're going to do is we're going to go back over to the VMware Fusion, and here I'm able to still choose that disk image. Now if you don't have this pulled up, that's okay. I'm going to show you how to get there. So I'm going to cancel out of all this, and I'm going to go into the settings, which you can either click on the little wrench right here, or you can click on virtual machine and you can click on settings right there. So virtual machine settings, and then you can click on CD/DVD. Now here you want to go ahead and choose a disk or disk image, and then I put it in the downloads folder. So I'm going to select the Ubuntu 23.04 desktop AMD 64 ISO file, and I'm going to click open. Now we've got everything set up exactly the way that we need it in order to install Ubuntu in a VMware Fusion virtual machine. So I'm going to go ahead and close this settings window, and I'm going to go ahead and start up the virtual machine. So give it just a few moments, and we'll see when it boots up, it should ask us to start the setup. Oh, here we go. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and try or install Ubuntu. So I'm going to go ahead and click inside the virtual machine with your mouse, and then I'm going to press enter. Now this may take just a few moments to load because it's trying to load up all the drivers for your hard drive, for your USB, for your mice, keyboards, video card, anything you could possibly think of. So this may take a few moments just to load up the setup, but give it just a few moments and it'll be pulled up, and then we'll be able to install the Ubuntu onto the VMware Fusion virtual machine. Now, another thing that I should mention while we're waiting for this to finish booting, if you want this to run quicker, just allocate more processor cores and more RAM to the virtual machine, and it'll help it to load quicker. That way it doesn't take so long to boot up, even into the setup itself. Because the more it has to work with, the more resources, the quicker it's going to load up. Okay, so here it wants you to select your language. Now, obviously, you would pick your language. I'm going to go ahead and keep it on English, but you can choose anything else if you happen to be watching in a different country, or if you speak a different language, you can go ahead and select that different language. So I'm going to choose English, click Next, and then I'm going to install Ubuntu because I want to actually keep it on this computer and continue to use it. Now you can also try it, but it won't install it in the virtual machine so you can use it every time. You'd have to keep clicking try Ubuntu. So I don't want to do that. I'm going to install it and click Next. Here, again, it's going to ask what keyboard layout I want for my keyboard. So I'm going to choose English US, but you can also choose a different one, like if you're in the UK or if you're in South Africa, or maybe you have a completely different keyboard setup. Just select the one that you have and go ahead and click Next. Here, I'm going to go ahead and tell it to use a wired connection because remember, we already have the networking on the VMware Fusion shared to the virtual machine. So I'm just going to tell it to use a wired connection, and it will automatically find that connection. So go ahead and click Next. And here, You can do a minimal install. Most people wouldn't want to do that. That's mostly for if you were going to do it in a public setting. You could have it where it's just a web browser and the main utilities. That would be if somebody was just going to use it as a web client only, almost like a Chromebook. I wouldn't recommend that. I would just do the normal install. And then listen, you can also install these third-party software for graphics and Wi-Fi hardware. That's going to help detect your graphics card, going to help you to detect your Wi-Fi connection. And that is if you're actually installing it on a separate computer. Now, if you're doing it on VMware Fusion, we're going to install the VMware Fusion tools, but you can go ahead and install this too if you'd like. And then also the support for additional media formats. This would be really helpful if you're trying to play like an MPEG-4 file, maybe you're trying to play a MKV file, different types of files. This would be helpful. So I'm going to install everything and go ahead and click next. Now, I'm not going to go and do the manual partitioning. You can if you want to. I'm going to make it easy on myself and just tell it to erase the disk and install Ubuntu. And I'm going to go ahead and tell it next. And here, again, you don't really have to change anything. It'll do all the partitioning for you. So we're just going to click on install. Okay, at this point, you want to select your location. Now, this is mainly to get the correct time zone so that the time shows up correctly in the virtual machine. So I'm going to leave mine because I'm in Central Time Zone. I'm going to leave it as Chicago, and that's fine. We'll just leave it at that and just click next. And then you can put in your name here. I'm just going to call it test. And yeah, that's fine. Test VMware Virtual Platform is a great one for the computer name. Okay, so you do have to choose a password to put in. So I'm going to go ahead and put my password in that I'm going to choose. I'm just going to pick something, just make it kind of easy on myself. So sometimes you may have a password that you normally use for a lot of your testing purposes. Whatever you want to choose, that's fine. And then you can either choose to require my password to log in or not require it. I'm not going to require it, so I'm just going to click on next. Here you can choose between a light theme or a dark theme. I kind of like the dark theme, so I'm going to go ahead and choose that. But you can keep it on the light theme if you would prefer. So just give it a moment. It'll swap over to the dark theme, and we'll click on next. But again, it's your preference, whatever you'd like. And then I'm going to click next, and there it goes. It's going to install it, and as soon as it finishes, I'll show you exactly what it looks like, and I'll even show you how to shut it down and turn it back on. Now, one thing I wanted to show you while you're in the setup, you can actually go back through and read all of these really neat tips that they have. If you notice, there's an arrow to the left and there's a pause button. So if you just click the arrow to the left, it'll go back to the previous page where you can read about all the information that is accessible in Ubuntu. See, this one is access for everyone. But if I press the arrow back again, I can see how you can power up your productivity. So you can keep going back on all these different screens. And if you want to pause a screen, just hit the pause button and it'll stay right there on that screen. So you have plenty of time to read about it, learn about it, all the extra features that they've included in Ubuntu. So anyway, I just thought that would be something neat that y'all could also utilize while you're waiting for it to finish installing the Ubuntu software. So we'll just keep waiting until it finishes. Okay, it just finished installing. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and tell it to restart now. and then it'll boot back up and it'll go straight into Ubuntu. So we can go ahead and start using it. Now, if you get this message that says, please remove the installation medium and then press enter, all you're going to do on your keyboard is press Command and Control at the same time. And you're going to go up here and you're going to disconnect the CD DVD where it's already disconnected. So I'm going to go ahead and click back on the virtual machine 2 times. Once to get the menu off, the second time to go into the virtual machine, and then I'm going to press the enter button. And as you can see, it's restarting. And so in just a minute, Ubuntu will actually be up and running and we'll be able to use it. And I'll create another video in the future and I'll show you exactly how you can use Ubuntu, some of the things that you can do with it, how it might help you out in whatever area that you're needing. For this one though, I'm just showing you how to get it installed and how to turn it on and how to turn it off when you're finished with it. But later on, I'll create that other video for you. And again, if you like this, please go ahead and like and subscribe down below so that I can keep putting up these great videos and I'll continue to create things that you need. And so if you have something specific you'd like me to create, please leave it down below in the comments or you can send me a message privately. Great, it just finished installing. So here, it makes it really easy for you. It wants to go ahead and set everything up for you. So you can go ahead and tie in your Google account, or your Nextcloud account, or your Microsoft account. For right now, I don't want to do that. I'm just going to skip it. But if you did, you could just go ahead and click on Google and put in your information, and it would automatically, seamlessly connect you to those accounts with your Ubuntu. So I'm going to skip it for now. And it wants to know if I want to send info to help improve Ubuntu. And that's fine. I'll just leave it on for now. So I'll click next. And then lastly, okay, so it wants to know if you want to turn on your location. Now, most of the time, all these different operating systems want to know your location so that it can help you know what the weather looks like outside, if you wanted to get driving directions, things of that nature. Oh, even news. So I'll go ahead and turn it on for now. And then I'm going to click next. And then you can install software. So if you want to, you can go ahead. Oh, look, and there's also a new update for the OS as well. So if you want to install that, you can. You can also open the Ubuntu software and install some of that software that they're suggesting. So for right now, I'm going to go ahead and tell it to install the Ubuntu update. And then I'll go back later on and install the Ubuntu software, some of the different ones. You know, like the Plex Media Server, the VLC. Some of those things are ones that you may actually want to utilize. After this update installs, I'm not going to install the software right now. I'll show you that in another video, but I'm going to go ahead and show you how to shut it down. And that way you can at least know how to turn it on, get it installed, and then turn it off when you're finished. Okay, so we'll go ahead and click done on this other window. And I'm going to go ahead and tell it to restart now. So as you can see, the update installed very quickly. So now what we're going to do, we're just going to go ahead and shut it down. So what you're going to do is up here in the top right, there's a little icon that looks like a power icon. You're going to click on that. And then you're just going to click on the power icon again. And you're just going to tell it to power off. And that's it. Oh, and click power off again. If you waited, it would automatically power it off after 60 seconds. And as you'll notice in just a moment, it's going to go and it's going to be completely off. If you want to turn it back on, you just hit the play button. But that's how you would actually install Ubuntu in a VMware virtual machine. Thanks so much, everybody, for watching. I hope that was helpful on how to install Ubuntu version 23 or 22, whichever one you would prefer, and how to put it in a VMware virtual machine. So until next time, please like and subscribe down below so that I can keep putting up these great videos. And until next time, I'll see you then. Bye.